Hello and welcome to Uzreport World News, and my name is Bahram Gaffarov. President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, on Thursday visited the eastern Namangan region. During his last trip to the region in June 2020, he pointed out the prospects for the specialization of Kasansai, Chartak and Yangi Kurgan districts in horticulture. On January 11th of this year, he also signed a decree providing for the development of fruit and vegetable growing and viticulture in the above districts. An intensive garden created by Suraj General Investments in Yangi Kurgan was his first destination in the region.
The area where the new garden has been erected was bone dry and was used inefficiently. Foreign direct investments from the UAE worth $3 million have allowed to change 130 hectares of land into a beautiful garden. The water at the facility is pumped from a depth of 250 meters. Seedlings of cherries, apricots, peaches and plums were imported from Italy. Mirziyoyev asked about the economic efficiency of the garden. The yield of an intensive garden is 3 times higher than the traditional method of gardening. Due to the drip irrigation system, water saving is twice more. The annual capacity of the garden from the next year will be 5,000 tons. The exports will amount to $4 million. The company plans to create gardens on another 1,000 hectares. Mirziyoyev said that 160,000 people from Namangan region went abroad seeking a decent job, and as a result of the opportunities created today, 100,000 of them have returned to the country. If young people have a clear idea of their paths, they have strengths. Do not get upset because of difficulties and trials. A person who has passed the school of life looks at the world differently. Young people, talented or not, are all our children. Therefore, such purposeful, not indifferent to their future, hardworking young people like you should be an example for others, said Mirziyoyev. As part of his trip to Namangan, President Mirziyoyev also visited the private enterprise Chust Textile in the Chust district. It is organized in the Free Economic Zone Namangan. The 2 factory complexes employ 1,300 people. The company produces the entire range of outwear and underwear on the basis of orders. It produced about 2,000 tons of fabric and 5.2 million units of finished knitwear in 2020. More than $9 million worth of goods were exported to countries such as Italy, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan. Exports are expected to reach $12 million this year. We used to bend over and plant and harvest cotton, but other countries benefited from it. Thanks to the opportunities created in recent years, new enterprises are emerging, entrepreneurs are developing freely, and the level of processing is increasing. Due to the formation of clusters and the management approach, the quality of cotton is also changing. If the cotton is of high quality, it will be easier for the entrepreneur, and the product will be of high quality and competitive, said Mirziyoyev. The facilities of the factory are built in the form of hangars without using a large amount of materials. As a result, $6 million was saved on construction alone. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, during his trip to Namangan, met with journalists and named 3 biggest problems and shortcomings that hinder reforms and accelerate development of the country. The first problem is personnel. According to Mirziyoyev, for many years, preschool, public and higher education remained unaddressed. The second problem is corruption. Corruption is everywhere. How to contain it? You have to understand one thing. We need to root out corruption. These are our first steps. For the first time in the history of Uzbekistan, we have created anti-corruption agency. For the first time, we have announced the spheres of medicine, construction and other spheres without corruption, said Mirziyoyev. The third problem is the insufficient level of potential, knowledge and patriotism of the heads of the state bodies. The leaders must be loyal. Their attitude towards the people must correspond to the present time. Unfortunately, there are few such worthy people.
The Iranian company Karavi Chemical Industry Group plans to build a chemical complex in the Fergana region of Uzbekistan. The presentation of the investment business project took place during a meeting of the company's representatives with Mayor of Fergana region, Hayrullah Bazarov, on Thursday.
The company plans to make a $15.2 million investment in several stages. It will produce chemical fertilizers for the domestic market and the markets of the CIS countries and Europe. Moreover, the company aims to launch the production of biologically active additives for pet food. All facilities will be built within the Free Economic Zone Kokand. Garavi Chemical Industries Group unites 12 chemical enterprises, exports more than 40 types of products to 20 countries of the world. It has extensive experience in the construction of chemical plants and the organization of production.
The head of the diplomatic mission of Uzbekistan to the EU, Dilyar Hakimov, discussed the agenda of further strengthening of the cooperation with the European Union at a meeting with Filio Matsucheli, chairman of the European Parliament delegation for relations with Central Asia and Mongolia.
During the conversation, the European side was informed about the ongoing negotiations on Uzbekistan's obtaining the status of a beneficiary country of the GSP Plus system and the country's accession to the World Trade Organization.
We attach particular importance to mutually beneficial cooperation with Uzbekistan, which is an important partner of the European Union in Central Asia. In the near future, we plan to create a friendship group EU-Uzbekistan in the European Parliament.
The Uzbek government, as part of its 2030 Digital Uzbekistan program, now is intending to introduce artificial intelligence technologies. A corresponding decree was signed by President Shavkat Mirziyoyev on February 18th.
The document has approved a program of measures for the study and implementation of these technologies in 2021-2022. It comprises 8 main priority areas: development of a strategy for the development of AI, development of the regulatory framework, wide application of AI technologies, creation of a domestic ecosystem of innovative developments, creation of conditions for software developers with the use of AI in accessing digital data, formation of investment attractiveness of scientific works and developments in the field of AI, development of the necessary educational environment, development of international cooperation. AI projects are set to cover 9 sectors of the economy and social sphere, including agriculture, banking, finance, tax, transport, energy and healthcare, pharmaceuticals, as well as e-government. Moreover, from July 1st, 2021, a special legal regime for the use of AI technologies in the framework of experimental innovative research will be introduced. To implement all above goals, the government plans to channel $19 million.
The Tashkent park will soon open in Ashgabat, Turkmen President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov said at a meeting with Uzbek Foreign Minister Abdulaziz Kamilov on February 17.
Abdulaziz Kamilov conveyed the message of the head of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, to Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov. The parties discussed the implementation of the agreements reached earlier in the framework of the meetings of the two presidents. During the meeting, the minister and the president discussed the implementation of joint infrastructure projects in the transport and communication sector. Cooperation on regional security issues and assistance to Afghanistan were discussed separately. The head of Turkmenistan noted that a park named Tashkent will be built in Ashgabat.
The role of youth in combating terrorism, extremism and radicalism were at the forefront of a public discussion at the international conference held in Tashkent on Thursday. The event, organized by Uzbekistan's Agency for Youth Affairs, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Youth Union, the German Society for International Cooperation, the OSCE Project Coordinator, UNDP and the UNODC Regional Office for Central Asia, consists of 4 sessions.
International experts and observers shared their experience in implementing effective measures to combat contemporary threats to humanity.
I think from UNDP perspective, we think that the best approach in countering the extremism is definitely inclusive development approach as well. Approach that will ultimately reduce the inequality. And of course that the youth has a particularly important role in that. The mere fact that this is first time into the mankind history that the youth generation is the majority of the generation. It's 2 billion globally, and not to mention in Uzbekistan, is extremely important. So therefore, the approach that we believe and the role of the youth is the one that empowers the youth, the one that uses the potential of the youth, it puts it in place as agents of the positive change. That has been the approach that United Nations Development Program has been doing in Uzbekistan for some time. For example, in past we have been focusing on support services to labor migrants, for example, in Fergana. And now, at the moment, we are working on a number of support services to the young people so that they are meaningfully engaged, both politically and economically.
Uzbekistan's Deputy Prime Minister Aziz Abduhakimov noted that young people under the age of 30 make up 55% of the country's population.
As in other countries, the influence on our youth of ideological threats such as extremism, terrorism, and radicalism is higher than other factors and threats. The international community, international and regional organizations are making every effort to combat these threats around the world and, in a sense, are achieving positive results.
Deputy Prime Minister highlighted that Uzbekistan mobilizes all opportunities for the upbringing of physically fit and spiritually enriched young generation. For this purpose, Uzbekistan takes all the measures aimed to provide youth with new educational institutions throughout the country, cultural and art centers, sports arenas and specialized schools, he added. It was also noted that the number of higher education institutions in the country has increased by 60% over the past 3 years and now stands at 116.
The Central Bank of Uzbekistan has imposed sanctions on 15 domestic banks, the organization's press service reports. These include Agrobank, People's Bank, Microcredit Bank, National Bank, and etc. The regulator said it imposed sanctions as several employees of banks have refused to process customer payments with plastic cards. They didn't use terminals and didn't cash out money from cards. The central bank instructed to fix the problems and warned with new sanctions to employees if violations repeat. The press service of the regulator also asked consumers of banking services to contact them in such cases.
U.S. President Joe Biden will meet with G7 world leaders on Friday for the first time since taking office. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said Thursday he plans to discuss the global response to the pandemic, reopening the world economy, and countering China. The call with the Group of Seven is a chance for Biden to project a message of global re-engagement after 4 years of former President Donald Trump's America First policies, an unorthodox approach to foreign policy. Biden is set to pledge $4 billion to the World Health Organization's COVAX scheme, a global initiative which aims to ramp up COVID-19 vaccination in poorer countries. Meanwhile, Britain, which currently chairs the G7, will also ask member countries to help meet a 100-day target for the development of future vaccines. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has promised to share surplus vaccine doses with developing countries and expressed interest in a global health treaty to ensure proper transparency in dealing with future pandemics. China will also be a top priority on the G7 agenda. In his first major foreign policy speech as U.S. president, Biden cast China as its most serious competitor, pledging to confront what he called China's economic abuses, aggressive coercive action, and attack on human rights. Made up of the United States, Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, and Canada, the G7 has a combined GDP of about $40 trillion, a little less than half of the global economy.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Mission managers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory near Los Angeles burst into applause and cheers Thursday as NASA's science rover Perseverance landed successfully on Mars, the first stop on a search for traces of ancient microbial life on the red planet. The robotic vehicle sailed through space for nearly 7 months, covering 293 million miles before piercing the Martian atmosphere at 12,000 miles per hour to begin its approach to touchdown on the planet's surface. Moments after touchdown, Perseverance beamed back its first black and white image from the Martian surface, one of them showing the rover's shadow cast on the desolate, rocky landing site. The spacecraft's self-guided descent and landing during a complex series of maneuvers stands as the most elaborate and challenging feat in the annals of robotic spaceflight. The landing represented the riskiest part of a 2-year, $2.7 billion endeavor, whose primary aim is to search for possible fossilized signs of microbes that may have flourished on Mars some 3 billion years ago. Scientists hope to find biosignatures embedded in samples of ancient sediments that Perseverance is designed to extract from Martian rock for future analysis back on Earth, the first such specimens ever collected by humankind from another planet. 2 subsequent Mars missions are planned to retrieve the samples and return them to NASA in the next decade.
An American tech analyst told Reuters that Australia's standoff with Facebook and Google has become more about fighting big tech rather than reimagining journalism. Australia is pushing ahead with a law that will force Facebook and Google to pay news outlets for content. Early Thursday, Facebook responded with a blackout, blocking news pages and more on Australian users' Facebook feeds. Eric Goldman is the Associate Dean for Research at Santa Clara University Law School, and he says this standoff won't help answer a bigger question. How do you keep struggling sources of news alive?
I don't think this kerfuffle is going to cause people to rethink how we fund journalism. I fear it comes down to the idea that so many people are skeptical of the power and money that are in the hands of Google and Facebook, and they will look at this simply as a way to stick it to them.
Goldman says the debate needs to consider the social impact of placing news content online.
So long as this becomes a battle over the power and money in the hands of internet companies, it obscures the really important social questions that we have. What information is being produced, who's producing it, what incentives do they need, and how is that helping us stay safe and make good political choices at the ballot?
It's uncertain what will come of talks between Australia's government and big tech. But as of Friday morning, it wasn't just news sites scrubbed from the social network's local feeds. Several charity, nonprofit, and even neighborhood Facebook groups remained dark.
Stocks on Wall Street closed lower on Thursday after a worse-than-expected report on jobless claims pointed to a fragile recovery in the labor market, and a decline in tech stocks such as Apple and Facebook weighed on the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy NASDAQ, with Facebook shares dropping 1.5% as Wall Street assessed the wider ramifications of its move to block all news content in Australia. The Dow and S&P both closed down about 0.4%, while the NASDAQ lost 0.7%. Progress in the vaccination rollout, plus strong earnings and hopes of a $1.9 trillion federal stimulus package had helped U.S. stock indexes again hit record highs earlier in the week. But after a months-long rally, Thomson Reuters stocks buzz analyst Terrence Gabriel says the market could now be at a turning point.
The conditions are there in terms of overly bullish sentiment, a lot of complacency, very overheated internal measures and market momentum measures. So the conditions are there for the market to be at an important turning point. So certainly we have to watch the way any kind of decline starts to develop in terms of how broad it is.
Meanwhile, retail giant Walmart slid 6.5% after missing quarterly profit estimates and forecasting a slowdown in sales and profits for the year.
We always felt comfortable with our liquidity.
Thursday's action on Wall Street came as the heads of online broker Robinhood and hedge funds were being grilled by lawmakers in Washington over the GameStop saga, which saw retail investors drive up the video game company's stock, hitting hedge funds who had been betting against the company.
So far, these were the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.